Apologon, the replacement to Babylon. The world we see and know and whose history we learn, is Babylon. Babylon is the name of an historic place, but it is used as a place name, for a particular culture or worldview. Babylonian is the term used, for all those who inhabit Babylon. This encompasses virtually every person alive or who has ever lived. What we need to learn, is thinking of the world as information. When we speak of the world of Babylon, we are talking about a specific kind of person and a particular culture. It is a diverse culture, and the people in it are of many races. The diversity is almost unlimited. We call these different types of people, races, and we call their ways of life, cultures, but this tends to be misleading. There are only two races and two types of people. They inhabit two distinct worlds, or what might be better thought of as worldviews, or philosophies. The Bible calls these two peoples or races, the people of the flesh and those of the spirit. The world of the flesh is the world of Babylon. Its culture is Babylonian. There is an historic Babylon, established by Nimrod. It is the source of many innovations, man remain with us to this day. It is for this reason that the historic Babylon serves as the namesake of the culture that was derived from it. But it is a way of life that is alien to those who are born of the Spirit. This essay has coined the term, Apologon, for the city that is a contrast to Babylon. It is a city based on biblical apologetics. In one sense it is a city of apologists. In keeping with this terminology, we are apolocrats. We believe those who live as a reflection of Christ, ought to rule. This is also known as the principle of dominion. Earth was given to the church to govern. We are the caretakers and stewards of earth. None of this will make sense to a Babylonian. For them there is only the Babylonian culture. There is only one world or reality, according to Babylonian doctrine. But as such it is a relativistic world. Babylon incorporates all gods. This is because the true power is man. The rule of Nimrod represents the authority of man over all principalities and powers. There may be great diversity in Babylon, but they are all under the headship of one all-embracing worldview. Naturally, if there are two great regimes, there must be a line of division. If there were features common to both, they could not be divided. The two worldviews represent two races and ways of thinking. The two realities are two distinct cultures. Each group of persons have their own head. The one governed by God and the other by Satan. We who believe in God, can know who God is, by how his headship alienates us from the kingdom of Satan, or Babylon. In the same way, Satan alienates his followers, from God. In this sense what we are talking about is two distinct kingdoms. The Bible states unequivocally we cannot be ruled by two masters, either we serve the one or we serve the other. These two kingdoms are mirror images, and the one contradicts and alienates the other. Someone may dispute the nature of the kingdoms and claim their belief system is unique, but they would need to explain how it is unique and not a modification or variation of what exists elsewhere. The naysayer would need to prove their way of life does not utilize the institutions of Babylon. However, this would still not be enough. To prove their version of reality is unique, they would need to prove Apologon, where those who live in the Spirit, are part of Babylon. If these things cannot be done, the only thing they have done is prove Babylon encompasses all cultures and philosophies. Only one option is unique, the rest of the world is part of the Babylonian Empire. There is a point we have not touched upon. This division into two races and realities is only valid if one is a member of the church. As a Babylonian you will dispute this division. If you are part of the Babylonian Empire, you will claim there is great diversity, but it is all part of the one all-encompassing reality. There are in fact, only two possible options. Either there is only one, all-encompassing reality, or there are two races and two realities. The world of the flesh, which is Babylon, claims there is only one reality. Those of the Spirit are not part of this reality and so believe in two separate realities. The world empire of Babylon evolved from historic Babylon. However, those who adhere to this one reality position, have a problem, because they contradict their own argument. If everything is relative and the one reality contains all possible creations, that is an absolute and metaphysical claim. But the claim that the Babylonian reality is absolute does not fit in the relativistic framework. Absolutist claims cannot be empirically established. This is akin to claiming there are no absolute truths, which is a paradox, because if true, it is false. By claiming something has no metaphysical component, one is making a metaphysical claim. Therefore, if there are no absolutes, there must be at least one absolute, the claim that there are no absolutes. Therefore, by the same token, there must be at least two realities, the relativistic one and the one excluded by the relativistic paradigm. The bottom line is that the relativistic paradigm must and does contradict itself. There cannot be but one reality. There has to be the absolute reality of truth, and the one containing the world's lies. By the same token, there cannot be more than two conceptions of reality. All conceptions are included in the relativistic paradigm but one, the true one. The other problem the Babylonian runs into is that if all truth is relative, no truth is absolute, which means truth does not exist, at least not in the relativistic reality. Therefore, all truth must be part of a different reality. This is borne out by empiricism itself, which never claims to find the truth, but only to increase the probability something is true. We can see the sun rise every day and know it has done the same thing every day since time began, but we cannot prove, through experience, that tomorrow we'll see the sun. No amount of experience impacts the future. This same uncertainty extends to God. A secularist might see that nature points to a creator, but there is always a trace of doubt. Our senses provide us with no certainty. Indeed, our five senses are inherently untrustworthy. We do not see what our eyes see, we see what our brain cells provide, and we do not even know who looks at these mental images. Who is the observer? Where is it located? But experiential knowledge is paradoxical. If all of our knowledge comes from experience, how do we know absolute truth exists? Experience does not tell us that some facts are analytical absolutes. What are we comparing phenomenological events to, if all we know is what we have acquired from our five senses? Why would we even make statements such as, "There is no absolute truth," if we have never experienced absolute truth and cannot possibly know what it looks like? If all we know is relative, probabilistic and contingent, where do we get the idea of an infinitely powerful God from? Indeed, the reality is, if we listen to liberals, we would assume man is under the law of the jungle. If there are no absolutes, the only jurisprudence we have is achieved by force. The law of the jungle states that might makes right and the end justifies the means. Phenomenology is not just the claim that everything we know is derived from our five senses, it is a culture based on the rights of the apex predator. If you have the power, then you have the right. This belief was enshrined in the divine right of kings. The man with the most power had the most rights. A king with absolute power had absolute rights. All law is based on the power of a ruler to turn his opinion into a regulation that governs his subjects. Without the ability to enforce a decree, it remains just someone's opinion. It is the monopoly on terror that gives the state his power to make the law. Therein lays the explanation for Nimrod, Babylon and the enactment of the Code of Hammurabi, 1755 to 1750 BC. But we cannot be saved by means of the law. Its highest achievement is a legalist, a person who mindlessly follows the letter of the law. Needless to say, legalists require constant supervision to ensure that the law is being followed, which brings up the question of, who watches the watchers? An unsolvable dilemma. This begs the question as to what is the alternative to the law? If we do not use fear, force and law to maintain order, how is order to be maintained? If the law of the jungle is repealed, what is put in its place? It is a question never before answered, if it has even been asked. At least it has never been addressed by any Babylonian, past or present. There are three things we can focus on. The cult saved is centered on the church. Upon entering the church, which is a way of saying when we understand reality as an analytical construct, we start to think in a way different from the way we thought as Babylonians. As Christians, as we consider building the church with our saved spirits, the ideas of justice, faith and morality come into the foreground. We no longer consider the use of force as the main method of keeping order. As Christians, if we do not want to live in fear, then we need to live in faith. The law of the jungle epitomizes fear. If we reject the use of force to achieve our objectives, then justice, based on something more than fear and the monopolization of force by the state, becomes important. Once we refuse the legal, ethical or law-based option, we are required to learn how to live a moral life. Faith, justice and morality replace the fear, force and ethics used by the state, in the church. The doctrine of faith. We have a right to live without risk, We have a right to live without the threat of losing what is ours, because of insolvent claims by parasites. We have a right to be able to trust others. If a person cannot be trusted, they have no right to be in a faith-based community. We have no obligations to trust those who cannot be trusted. We owe no duty to people who have no sense of obligation or responsibility to others. The doctrine of justice. We all deserve to be paid for what we do, no one deserves to be paid for what they do not do. We all have a right to own what we create. No one has a right to own what was created by others, without sufficient compensation. No one is entitled to what another person has or is duty-bound to share what was gained by them in a just and honorable way. We own what we create, and no one has a claim on anything created by another. The right to justice is absolute and inalienable. This right to justice is the right to own what we created and to be compensated for any loss, by guile or coercion, of what we created. The doctrine of morality. We have a duty to be righteous. We not only do not take what belongs to others overtly, we do not deprive others of what we can provide. Nor do we deprive others of their right and ability to give. To be moral is to live by a standard that is objective and not designed to preferentially benefit a group. To be moral is to be principled. The universal moral principle is the golden rule. We do not deprive anyone of what is rightfully theirs. We cannot be a parasite or freeloader. We do unto others as an example and a model of what we expect from others. Conclusion. To have justice, we need to have courts. To have morality, we need to have principles. To have faith, there needs to be a church. The church is a court composed of persons who have faith in one another. The church is a court and an economy. We have a right to live an unmolested life. No one has a right to impose restrictions, limitations or burdens of any kind on another, nor tolerate burdens being placed on them. But not being obligated to others, does not give us a right to remove burdens and obligations from ourselves, or impose burdens on others. We have a duty to live according to our principles. Citizens must subscribe to a set of principles that alienate us from the law of the jungle. We must rise above this level. We a source of commotion or upheaval. Our rights are only as important as the rights of all. It is the church that is the measure of justice. Everyone is free to do and be what they wish, but not at the expense of others and not to the detriment of the general welfare. Justice requires we impose no costs onto others. Morality requires we impose no discomfort or sacrifices upon others. Faith requires we cause no one to doubt or fear or lose trust in us. We do not own land as a personal possession. We are stewards, not owners. We are stewards of the products that are derived from nature. We are gardeners. We care for this place. This makes us patriots. A patriot is not a selfish person. A patriot sees the earth as a gift and views his part of it as a responsibility. Patriotism is the recognition of an obligation. Apologon represents the culture of patriots. Babylon, in contrast, represents the jungle, or the primitive side of man.